All right, Teddy, I'll start with you. In the NFC North, who's going to have the bigger year, Jared Goff or Jordan Love?
I'm going to go with Jared Goff. Gosh, the guy is just battle-hardened. I'm a real fan. I mean, 4 out of the last 5 years, he's quarterbacked a top 5 offense, and that's from Hembo. So good job there, Hembo, in giving me that stat. You know, good versus Graziano. But you hooked me up, so I appreciate that. I'm going to take Jared Goff. I think he's the one that's just going to lead the Lions to probably be one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFC.
It's a very sexy pick for a lot of people. Hey, Jeffrey, let's go out to the NFC West. Who's having the bigger year, Brock Purdy or Matt Stafford?
Brock Purdy, to me, continues to ascend into what will be a star in the NFL, and I just think that this roster is loaded with or without Brandon Ayuk. I know what Marcus thinks. He thinks that Ayuk is so important, and we'll see if Ayuk's there. Ultimately, though, Brock Purdy, to me, is setting himself for a potential Super Bowl run this year.
And then let's go to the NFC East, Graziano. Here's an interesting one. Who's going to have the better year, Dak Prescott or Jalen Hurts?
I'm going to go with Dak Prescott there. Look, the year he's coming off of is of a caliber that I don't think we've seen from Jalen Hurts. He's got some continuity with the offense. It's still going to be Mike McCarthy calling plays like it was last year. I believe CeeDee Lamb will get signed soon and be there. And Jalen Hurts getting used to a new offensive coordinator for the second year in a row. Dak's in a contract year. Give me Dak.
Okay, it's going to be really interesting. Obviously, everything surrounding Dak is interesting, and we have stuff from him. So the more we hear from Dak, the more we are starting to hear him talking about a world in which he isn't on the Cowboys anymore after this season. And he was talking about that yesterday. Here's what he said.
You have to think about the future at times. And as I said, I looked up, and as I said, all great quarterbacks, and it's honestly a lot of quarterbacks that have done that. And that's just the business and the nature of this game. And that's me not being naive to that and to those potentials. And as I said, if something like that happens, I'll be most certainly ready for it. I'm here in training camp and focused on this year. I'm on a contract for this year, and that's all I really care about. I get to play with these guys, get to play for a team that I love, and that's where my focus lies.
So look, to me, first of all, those are all the right things to say. Second, one of the comparisons you make here obviously would be to Tom Brady and his ultimate departure from New England. I'm not comparing the players, but the circumstances are at least somewhat similar. Now, Teddy, Brady obviously is someone you're very close to. You were gone by the time, you were retired by the time he left, but you must have seen him through this period where at some point he accepted it. Like the realization that he wasn't going to play his whole career in New England, which he probably assumed was going to be the case for so much of the time. Once that realization sets in, it feels to me like you kind of cross a Rubicon, and that may be happening with Dak here. What is your perspective, Teddy?
Well, it's interesting because the realization comes when you cut the cord from the front office and you cut the cord from the owner and general manager because, going up, quarterbacks, it's different than linebackers and defensive linemen and receivers and everything like that. You have the relationship with the head coach, with the general manager, with the owner, who's the same guy in terms of the Cowboys, but there is always communication. There is always relationship. And then Dak having this sort of realization moment is saying, yeah, I love it here, but I know that this won't last forever. That's a brilliant way to play business. If you're playing business right now and you're saying, listen, man, I know how good I am. This is when a quarterback really starts to realize, I don't think I need the Dallas Cowboys to be a successful quarterback in the National Football League. If I'm able to go somewhere else, I know I'll succeed somewhere else. So there's that aspect of it. But then there's the other aspect of it also to where Dak knows, well then, if I want to get paid and do it with someone else, I got to go out and ball this year. So it could be good for the Cowboys also if he has an MVP caliber season, which he did last year, but also goes out there and does it this year because he knows I need to do it because I need to show and then get paid after this year.
Dare I lend some optimism to the Cowboys situation? For some reason, I'm starting to like this scenario. For some reason, I'm liking the idea of Dak Prescott with the leverage of, I'm okay going somewhere else. And Jerry Jones maybe going into chase mode a little bit, but also being like, then you prove it to me that you belong here. I am liking this friction. It's never something we've seen with Jerry Jones. He's never had a quarterback. The Cowboys have never had a quarterback in Tony Romo, Troy Aikman, Danny White, Roger Staubach, Don Meredith, who have played for another team.
Yeah, no one leaves there.
Nobody leaves. The idea that there is even a flirtation with it feels like maybe this tension could bolster this relationship.
Graziano, what do you think?
Yeah, look, the range of outcomes is pretty wide here, right? Like Dak Prescott could sign a contract extension tomorrow, right? But he could also take it all the way through the season. And that's the reality of the situation that he's talking about. I mean, until he is signed for 2025, he's not, which means he could be anywhere that year. He knows it. Getting the Cowboys to confront the idea of life without him is exactly where he and his agent should be right now, because if it gets through this season and he still doesn't have a new contract, and we're at the point where the agent starts hearing from other teams and knows what's out there, then I think the reality of him leaving becomes much more front and center. So the Cowboys have some incentive to get this done, if not before the season, then sometime during the season. I still think it's entirely possible that they do. But right now, Dak is in a great spot, as we've discussed many times. He has all the leverage. He can sit and wait for them to come to him with the deal he wants. He doesn't have to move until he gets everything he wants.
Teddy, quick final word.
Here's the thing, that if this goes any further, I mean, if Dak gets signed in the next 2 weeks, I mean, it's all hunky-dory in Dallas. He got paid and he gets everything he wants. But if this goes further, fellas, what this will do to the team, if I'm a member of the Dallas Cowboys and I see that Dak Prescott, this has gone so far where Dak doesn't have a contract, he's playing for a contract, this could be my last year with Dak. Let's go win this year. It's going to make people in the team, his teammates, want to play even harder. So is this a ploy by Jerry Jones to get that effect? I don't know if he thinks as deep as I do, but it's possible.
You know, it's also interesting. I'm not sure.
I like it.
We may have to spend some time on the Cowboys this season. It's not something we usually do. You know, it's a team we usually kind of, Graziano knows, we kind of steer clear of them. But we may have to cover that team this year. They could be very interesting.
Painfully close to the Super Bowl last year when they were unable to hold a 17-point lead in the NFC Championship against the 49ers in San Francisco. They're bringing back largely the same group, including their coordinators. Defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn and offensive coordinator Ben Johnson were both candidates for head coaching jobs elsewhere, but both of them stayed. And the Lions think that's a big advantage to them as they pursue their ultimate goal.
Trust is a big thing in this game, so it was a big, a great thing that Ben came back, because he knows our offense very well, and he knows how to put us in positions to succeed and get us the ball and score points. So with that, this connection is pure. So
personnel-wise, things look mainly the same, but maybe Jameson Williams could be somebody that we can see a lot more.
Yeah, JMO, he's stepping up really big this year. He's a completely different player from last year. Like, it's crazy to see his development and growth. Like, yeah, man, I'm so proud of him. I'm so excited to watch him play.
I talked to Ben Johnson before Thursday morning's practice, and he said the biggest difference he notices is that there's more confidence and swagger around here than there's ever been before. Johnson told me there's a sense that we have a standard, it's a high standard, and if we don't hold ourselves to it, we're all going to be pissed off.
That just sounds like the Lions, doesn't it? All right, biggest moves they made this season. We talked about what the Bucs were doing. Well, the Lions, they extended their own players. They lock up Jared Goff. They lock up Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell, all to long-term deals. They add DJ Reader and Marcus Davenport. They bolster that defensive line. They draft a couple of quarterbacks in the draft, Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw. That could have been perhaps addressing their biggest need of the offseason, a guy who's always high on the Detroit Lions. Yes, looking at you. You've been there. Listen, you were preaching it all along.
He didn't do
they
much.
come so.
He didn't do much there.
What?
He been there, but he was just visiting.
Yeah.
He's a legend there. He's a legend.
He was telling us.
Yeah, sure
you were telling us. How do they get back to the Super Bowl? How do they?
So stupid, man.
Oh my gosh!
Lions legend. That is
go back home.
Well, that is how we should introduce Dan Fernell.
Yes.
Lions legend. Dan
Maybe not for a good reason.
Yes.
Maybe not for a good reason.
In somebody's mind.
I think really, we just gave a graphic of some of like the really important names, certainly departures, but some of the additions. I think the biggest addition is going to be a full off-seasoned, healthy Jameson Williams. I'm nitpicking for the Detroit Lions here. If I had to find one thing that I guess was a flaw of their offense last year was it didn't have vertical speed. And Ben Johnson, who's their offensive coordinator, who they're lucky to keep, one of the things that stands out about his offense is it looks a lot like Kyle Shanahan's. When Kyle, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur's offenses, when they have someone who can go down the field, it takes the offense to a different level. You know, because the defense can't shrink as much anymore, and then the play action's even bigger. And so you can either throw the ball downfield or get some of those really big chunks in the play action game. So if Jameson could stay healthy and kind of be what they envisioned him to be 2 years ago when they drafted him in the first round with his speed, man, it just changes so much of the explosive element and the chunk offense that they can get in their play action game.
Yeah, to your point, they become 3-level. Great running game, Amon-Ra and Laporta work in the middle of the field. It felt right because
like you put a little flair
and then
on that.
obviously with Jameson. But I like similar in the same vein of what Tampa did this offseason. We're getting Penei Sewell signed, Amon-Ra St. Brown, extending Jared Goff. I thought those were big moves just for the direction of where the Detroit Lions has been going for a few years. I'm going to also tell you this, man. Aiden Hutchinson has gotten helped out tremendously by Marcus Davenport coming over from the Saints. Because last year, we sat here week in and week out talking about, man, if they could just get after the quarterback. If they could just create that pressure outside of Aiden Hutchinson, they got going a little bit from the interior with a game. But Marcus Davenport is another one of those big, long defensive ends that creates a lot of havoc from the outside. I think he's going to be one of those guys that take this defense to another level.
See, you bring up Davenport. And I think of DJ Reader. And had DJ Reader been healthy during free agency, he got hurt there at the end of last season against the Minnesota Vikings. Had he been healthy, he would have been one of the top free agents 100%. Available. And Detroit got him at a discount because he was hurt. He was damaged goods. But if he's healthy and he's a force on that defense, you got Davenport and DJ Reader to combine with Aiden Hutchinson to make what was a tough defense that much tougher and to raise this team's hopes even more. And I asked Lions legend Dan Orlovsky, has this city ever been more excited for a Detroit Lions city than this?
No, I mean, this is real. I mean, this is the best team that they have had in well over 25, close to 30 years. It's real. They're a NFC favorite. Them in San Francisco are what we know in the NFC.
You guys mentioned DJ Reader, Aiden Hutchinson. I just want to mention one more name on the defensive line. Alim McNeill is a star in the making. This was already a really good run defense. I think they could be dominant there. The question, and really the only question I have about this team, is pass defense. This was obviously the biggest problem with this team last year. It was one of the only areas in which they were weak, and they addressed it pretty aggressively. Hannah, you laid out the draft picks. You draft Terrion Arnold, Dennis Rakestraw. You didn't see it. They traded for Carlton Davis, who I expect to have a starting role on the outside. Last year, you saw the good offensive coordinators would target the weaknesses in that secondary pretty aggressively, something you saw San Francisco do in the playoffs. Those players aren't there anymore. And if Arnold, Davis can step up, and maybe Jack Campbell, who they drafted in the first round, can play better in coverage this year, I think this pass defense could be significantly improved. And if that's the case, I mean, the sky's the limit with this team.
They allowed almost 8 yards an attempt, to Mina's point, last year. That was 31st in the NFL.
Pass rush going to have a lot to do with that.
Every offense in that division runs the same offense.
Now to reality, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have made left tackle Tristan Wirfs the highest paid offensive lineman in the NFL. 5 years, $140 million, just over 88 guaranteed. Here he is on the new deal. Congrats.
I don't really want to be anywhere else. It's pretty nice here. So I think just doing what I can to, I think both parties were happy. Tampa's a pretty good place to be.
Says a lot about us keeping our own guys from a stability standpoint. The guys that played great got rewarded greatly, and they're leaders on our team. Says a lot about the organization getting the job done. It says a lot about the team taking care of their own, especially the great ones that played. And to get him locked up like that, as much as he's done for this organization over the years, is outstanding.
Man, they've been locking everybody up, Adam. It's great to see one of the big men get paid, right, Swagoo? How did this come about, Adam?
Well, Hannah, you heard Todd Bowles talk about keeping their own players. And if we go back to the Combine, the Buccaneers laid out a plan there where in their perfect world, they would imagine keeping their key players. And what happens? They go out and they re-sign quarterback Baker Mayfield. They go out and re-sign Mike Evans. They go out and re-sign Antoine Winfield Jr. They go out and re-sign Levante David. And today, they cap off their goal that they set at the Combine by keeping Tristan Wirfs on a 5-year deal that ties him to the team through 2029 and makes him the highest paid Buccaneer in franchise history and the highest paid offensive lineman in franchise history. They have him now for the foreseeable future. He's obviously one of the best offensive linemen in the game. This was the last move that they had to make. And oh, by the way, right now, Wirfs is the highest paid player at his position. Antoine Winfield Jr. is the highest paid player at his position. So to Todd Bowles' point, they did step up and pay their own players.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to, if you're on that squad, I mean, what kind of message does that send, the way the front office has taken care of business, unlike some other teams?
Yeah, it raises your eyebrows because you know that you can be next in line. The other thing is, though, Adam knows this as well. Tampa has a long history of doing this. When you have success and you continue to be a pillar in that organization, a lot of those guys work in the community as well, but they like to keep it in-house. That's why you see this team every so often they vying to win the Super Bowl, or they go out and make a move like they did with Tom Brady. Or back when I was watching this team with Booger McFarland and Warren Sapp and Derek
Brooks, Rondé Barber.
Rondé Barber. They keep those guys for a long. They retire. They jerseys hang up in the stadium. So this is another one of those things where this family has done a phenomenal job in ownership of making sure that they identify guys that are not only going to be good players, but pillars and ambassadors for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I'm telling you right now, when you watch Tristan Wirfs play football, he worth every single penny.
Wirfs is worth it?
Wirfs is worth it, bro. I'm telling you.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
The physicality and the run game. It's hard to find two-dimensional, man. Like, you got some guys that can pass set, and they phenomenal at keeping guys off the edge. But sometimes when you want to run left or you want to run right and you got a road grader, like he can be in the run game, that's difficult for D-linemen.
He plays really good. He plays with really good leverage, too. The wrestling background shows up for him.
Absolutely.
I think Tampa's like a sneaky good football team this year. Maybe not as, I mean, obviously.
You think they can repeat as division champs, right?
I do. I think them and Atlanta are obviously the favorites, but playoff football team last year and pushed Detroit. And obviously Detroit had, the ending of their season. But if you look at this offensive line, the guy in the middle is probably the most important part to their offense. Graham Barton, who's their rookie center that they took out of Duke. If he's able to play at a relatively high level, this is an offensive line that is going to try to physically maul you. And then you've got two really good receivers that are proven. McMillan, right side of your screen there from Washington, I think is going to be a fantastic pro. Cade Otton at tight end, and White is a dynamic and dual threat back. I mean, if this offensive line can play at a good level, this is going to be a good football team. Now, Liam Cohen, who's now the offensive coordinator, replaces Dave Canal as head coach for the Carolina Panthers. I don't see a drop-off in performance by anybody in there. I really don't. Liam Cohen's time with Baker, he comes from a little bit of the Shanahan, McVay tree. I think it's the perfect marriage scheme and player-wise. This team could be a very, very good football team at the end of the season.
Any concerns about Canales leaving, Mina?
No. I want to hop off on something that Dan mentioned, though. I think Graham Barton is so important to this offense because what they did last year, it was kind of, I think like it got overlooked, the level of difficulty. Tristan Wirfs switching positions, Luke Goedeke, who struggled moving to right tackle, that shouldn't have worked, and yet it did. They were both excellent. The interior of the offensive line, however, was a problem, and you really saw that in run blocking. I mean, how many times do you see Rashad White just slamming into the teeth of a defense? He was 39th in yards before contact per carry, by the way. If they can get more push on the inside, and obviously that's where they've invested, drafting Barton where they did, to me, that could be a massive, massive instigator in taking this offense to the next level by improving the run game, because that was really the biggest issue with this team last year. It wasn't the pass game, and it was a big part of why they were in so many 3rd and longs.
Yeah, 21% chance to win the NFC South. Last year, though, only a 9% chance, and they got it done.
As appassionati Philadelphia Eagles fan, the prospect of adding a seasoned wide receiver like Juju Smith-Schuster is nothing short of exhilarating. The potential trade for the Steelers probably represents a calculated move that could significantly bolster our receiving corps, providing Jalen Hurts with another reliable target and adding depth to an already formidable offense. Analisem Juju Smith-Schuster S strengths. 1. Provem track record. Juju Smith-Schuster S career trajectories one marked by moments of brilliance and consistency. His Pro Bowl season in 2018 with the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he amassed nearly 1,500 receiving yards, showcased his ability to perform at an elite level. Though his production has fluctuated since then, his tenure with the Kansas City Chiefs in 2022 ignited his capacity to adapt and contribute effectively in a depth role, culminating in a Super Bowl victory. 2. Versatility and reliability. Juju's versatility is a key asset. He has demonstrated proficiency in both the slot and as an outside receiver, making him a valuable addition to any offensive scheme. His physicality, route running precision, and strong hands ensure he can be a reliable target, especially in critical third down situations. This adaptability would provide the Eagles with tactical flexibility, allowing Nick Sirianni to deploy him in various offensive packages. 3. Experience and leadership. At 27, Juju brings a wealth of experience despite still being relatively young. His presence in the locker room and on the field would offer mentorship to younger receivers like Devonta Smith and Case Watkins. His experience with multiple quarterbacks and offensive systems could also facilitate a smooth integration into the Eagles' playbook. Impact on the Eagle offense. 1. Depth and competition. Adding Juju would elevate the competition within the receiving corps, pushing existing players to elevate their game. This increased depth ensures that the Eagles can withstand injuries and maintain a high level of play throughout the season. Juju's ability to step up in crucial moments, as during his stint with the Chiefs, provides a safety net for the offense. 2. Enhanced red zone threat. One area where Juju could significantly impact is the red zone. His size and physicality make him a formidable threat in tight spaces, complementing the speed and agility of other Eagles receivers. Pairing him with Dallas Goedert Tergergergo, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith in red zone situations would give defenses nightmares, providing Hurts with multiple high-quality targets. 3. Familiarity with high-pressure situations. Having played for championship contending teams, Juju is no stranger to high-pressure environments. His playoff experience, particularly his role in the Chiefs' Super Bowl run, adds a level of calm and composure to the Eagles' offensive unit. This could prove invaluable in critical moments during the season and potential playoff games. Financial considerations and feasibility. 1. Cost-effective acquisition. Given Juju's underwhelming 2023 season with the Patriots, his trade value might be at a relative low, making him a potentially cost-effective acquisition. The financial savings for New England and Juju's desire to join a contender could alig, facilitating a mutual beneficial trade. 2. Cap Space Management. Ovi Rosiman has a knack for managing the salary cap and acquiring undervalued assets. Bringing Juju on board without jeopardizing the team's financial flexibility would be a masterstroke, allowing the Eagles to strengthen their roster while maintaining future cap health. Conclusion. While the trade for Juju Smith-Schuster is guaranteed, the mere possibility is enough to spark excitement. His strengths in reliability, versatility, and experience make him an ideal candidate to enhance the Eagle offense. If the opportunity arises, Ovi Rosiman should certainly explore the potential deal. The addition of Juju could very well be the final piece to propel the Eagles from contenders to favorites in their pursuit of another Super Bowl title.
Brasil nas Olimpíadas em Paris. E a gente vai ver a legenda do dia 1/8, que no caso é hoje, quinta-feira. Final do individual geral da ginástica, com a presença de Rebeca Andrade e Flávia Saraiva, e disputadas de Mayra Aguiar no judô são destaques no Dia Olímpico Brasileiro. Bom, Rebeca Andrade promete ser a estrela brasileira nas Olimpíadas de Paris em 2024, nesta quinta-feira, quando vai disputar a medalha no individual geral, modalidade em que foi prata em Tóquio. No tatame, Mayra Aguiar vai atrás de sua 4ª medalha em Olimpíadas. Pode vir, pode também, com Pepe Gonçalves. Na canoagem, slalom, né, e na marcha atlética, com Caio Bonfim. Veja a agenda do Dia dos Brasileiros nos Jogos Olímpicos. Gente, com certeza vocês vão saber, né? Mas para quem não sabe aí, essa aqui é a famosa Rebeca. Maravilhosa, né, gente? Vamos concordar. De olho na 4ª medalha olímpica, Rebeca Andrade já liderou a seleção feminina da ginástica artística na conquista da 1ª medalha olímpica por equipes do país. O bronze na terça se juntou ao ouro no salto e a prata no individual geral de Tóquio. Nesta quinta, a partir das 1h15, horário de Brasília, a ginasta busca sua 4ª medalha olímpica, mais uma no individual geral, no qual é uma das favoritas ao pódio. A aposta é que repita a prata de Tóquio, desta vez com a americana Simone Biles no lugar mais alto do pódio. Mas o ouro não é impossível, em uma disputa incrível deve ser. Flávia Saraiva também está na briga. Gente, são só gente fera mesmo, né? Que tá aí competindo. Principalmente nesse lance da Rebeca, né? Enfim, no judô, Mayra Aguiar e outra atleta que quer conquistar a 4ª medalha olímpica da carreira. A judoca é tricampeã mundial e foi bronze em Londres em 2012, Rio 2016 e Tóquio 2020. Ela sobe nesta terça ao tatame para tentar medalhar em 4 Olimpíadas consecutivas. Pela frente, no entanto, pega de cara o número 1 do mundo da categoria de até 78 quilos. A italiana Alice Belandi, né, às 5h50, pelas oitavas de final. No masculino, Leonardo Gonçalves será o representante do Brasil nesta terça, a partir das 5h30. Se eles avançarem, as finais serão às 11 horas. Essa foi a notícia, gente. Um beijo e até a próxima.